Hey everyone, we have Dr. Shreyas Srivatsan here, who is the author of the best-selling book, Dasha. He is also a superpower author award winner in an event in New Delhi a couple of months ago. So welcome, Dr. Srivatsan, and looking forward to hear from you, your author journey, and what inspired you to write a book.
Thank you, Raghunath, for this invitation, and I am much more honored to have this, conversation with you. I have been an author in some way or the other, writing from
Okay,
few sentences to a few paragraphs, and then to few pages, and
right.
then to few books, at this
Okay,
point in time. Probably it all started somewhere, in 2004, where I was part of the editorial panel for Christ University's management school. We
okay,
had a magazine called Christ Cameo, and I was part of an editorial
okay,
team there. Then subsequently, I was also part of the editorial team for Tata Motors
okay.
in-house magazine, and it used
Got
to be
it.
called as the CV Buzz then. So where
Okay,
we used to write, source, and then do the editorials and publish some of these magazines.
okay,
Apparently, many of the projects I have also been part of, presented papers in both national and international conferences, uh,
okay,
published in international journals as well as national journals. Also, been writing case studies in many other formats.
okay.
This was one piece, which was not part of my entire bouquet of my writing. My
Okay.
wife was inspiration for me to write. She said, why don't you attempt writing a novel? And
Okay.
that novel has transformed into something as a short stories in the form of Dashavatar, Awaken the Divine Within. That's my first
Yeah.
uh, fictional, story.
Okay.
And of course, I have a second book also, which is a short poems, a compilation of short poems, which is primarily, about all my inspirations. I
Okay.
have been writing into multiple, formats throughout, my journey of authorship. You may call
Right.
so.
Yeah. Again, an inspiration to everyone because you started off as doctorate student, and then you did research, case studies, and editorials, and then suddenly at one point you said I'm going to write a book, and that goes on to become a bestseller as well. So amazing achievement, Dr. Shreyas. And you said your wife is the inspiration. Can you talk a little bit about how she contributed to the success of this book?
She has been a good contributor in my journey of life, and
Right.
apparently, I was sharing of my dream as to, my accomplishments, and in that conversation, it so happened that I told her that I've been writing and I want to get into something where I talk of uh, preaching, as such,
Okay.
and where you intertwine divinity and then talk about it.
Okay.
She said, then, you've been writing, why don't you attempt writing?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then talk about fiction, because
I,
I've been a researcher, I've been a storyteller, I've been a author of many other formats, but not this kind of a format.
right.
So that's how the conversation led into something as an experiment. Of course, life has been an experiment. I've been experimenting many things in life. This was also an experiment. I
Okay.
always believe that you should never delay whatever you aspire to do. You may
Right.
be a failure in your attempts, but
Correct.
that should not hinder your experiments of life. So
Wonderful.
that's how my journey has been so far. This experiment has turned out to be a good one, though there
Yeah.
is a lot of improvements I could always harp on, but the
Right.
experiment has been successful.
Amazing. So I really like the point that you mentioned that you got that push from your wife, and then that's the inspiration that and the push that you needed to get writing a full fictional book. Amazing. Dr. Shreyas, we would also love to know what is it that inspired you to write something in spiritual genre, because not everyone in your circle might relate to it at an immediate level. So what is it that that is within you, that you said, I want to write something that can awaken the divinity in people?
It is a little deep thinking, I would say.
Okay.
But to keep it simple, I always believe that there is a lot of spirituality in each one of us,
Absolutely.
irrespective of the belief that you follow, or irrespective of the religion that you follow.
Right.
But there is always, some or the other kind of connectedness to an external, force, whatever you may want to define it so. As long as you're able to harness that external force to your own inner self,
Hmm.
you will be able to, I would say, do things which are much more productive, much more effective, which could impact you as an individual, also the surrounding you, for the society and nation at large, right? So
Right.
I have always believed that you can draw inspiration from anything. I mean, it could be from people, it could be from objects, it could be your own dreams and aspirations that you want to accomplish, so it could be an inspiration from anything that is surrounding you around with. But it is more important that how do you connect that to yourself, which is, see,
Okay.
action has to be with you. Inspiration
Right.
can be from anywhere, but action has to be with you. So how do you action them is what I have tried to also bring out in the book. Very interestingly though,
Okay.
if you look at 10, the title of the book is 10. Dasha is
Right.
10. Sanskrit dasha means, in English it is 10. Apparently I'm born on 10th June, so it connects
Oh,
very well
okay.
with my date of birth as well.
Okay.
But if you look at a larger picture, I ran a survey also on LinkedIn and try to
Okay.
solicit views, before I actually launch the title of this book. What
Okay.
does 10 mean? And when you look at it, very interestingly, the options that were listed were talking of a rating scale or a ranking scale. We always talk of a rating scale of 10. How do you rate it as a feedback systems and all that?
Absolutely.
uh, then you also have, you celebrate it with time. It's a decade is also
Yeah.
called as 10. You always relate with that. You
Right.
also have commandments of 10 principles.
Right. Right.
If you look at the 10 commandments, it's also has 10 in it. You
Yeah.
also have perfection and completeness. 10 also resonates with that, and 63% of the people polled for saying that 10 resonates with completeness.
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
Interestingly, if you look at 10, it is a number having 1 and 0, and
Okay.
it's a binary. It's complete
Right.
in that sense as well. In
Yeah.
in the computer system world, the binary language is the one which runs the world, and that is
Right.
all
Right.
1 and 0. So without 1 or without 0, it is not complete, and it
Absolutely.
resonated very well with the concept. And
Yeah.
even Dasha avatar, the inspiration is from the manifestation of Lord Vishnu into these various avatars, 10 avatars together,
Right.
has been a source of communication to the mankind, to say that there is some kind of an act which is required to ensure that there is something which the society can learn and benefit, and then move forward and be progressive about it.
Okay.
I felt that it connects the eternity at large, and hence my first book was titled as Dasha, in
Yeah.
continuation to my date of birth.
Interesting. I think you brought a lot of pointers on how 10 is significant. And when I look at, I'm a fan of football. So when I look at the players who have the best talent, it's mostly 10 in some teams. Like, Ronaldo had 10. And Michael Owen from England also had 10. So these are players whom I admire since childhood. And I see that they are having that 10. And the 10 is like the best player in the team. So I think that's having a special significance with all the other pointers that you mentioned. It's really interesting that you're bringing this up. So a little bit about the message in the book. So I know you talked about like the Dasha avatars of Lord Vishnu from Matsya till Kalki. So what is it that in the book that you're talking about? I know you said about stories, but what are the few things that you would want to share with our viewers so they understand what's in the book?
I will give you the context. May not, I will not be in a position to, probably articulate the entire thing, but the attempt has been to bring out the protagonist in the story, where he or she, because there are multiple, characters, where he or she gets into some kind of a challenges of managing, real time scenarios that we face in our society,
Right.
and how do they draw inspiration, uh, and the inspiration has a context here to these 10 avatars, because the lord has manifested himself for a certain purpose in these 10 avatars as per mythology, and those stories are what has transformed those protagonists in this stories to dwell upon, bring out their own inspirations and get into an action mode of solving it. And that is where awakening the divine within is very, very relevant,
Yeah.
to say that while I draw these inspirations which has some kind of a form which has been a mythology story, but more importantly, that how do I connect those characters to resolving some of these issues which has been pertinent to mankind, and how we could act together to find solutions for some of these problems. And that is what is more important. We all get lost in terms of brooding over challenges, but while the challenges continue, you are in a position to solve those if you are able to act on those, right? And
Yeah.
that is where I have always been talking of two aspects in the book. One is the avatar, the Dasha avatar, the 10 avatars,
Yeah.
and then how do you use that to awaken divinity within yourself? So as long as you are able to uh, generate that divinity within you to act for something good that can happen for the society, so the action is with us to act on it. So that's where the second part of the title comes in into play. Um, it has while there is a story, the story talks of lessons of morality, and it also talks of lessons of management, and
Okay.
it becomes a composite pattern to say that there is some kind of an inspiration that you draw from outside through mythology and stories, blend them to your own self learning, because there is morality in terms of what you're trying to address about, and iron out those some of those nuances in terms of how do you manage those situations, and hence the management comes in into play. I have
Okay.
been management student
Right.
throughout my academia, so I
Okay.
have tried to embed some of those things into my writing, uh,
Right.
and created a platform to blend mythology with management.
Yeah, absolutely. Even I'm a great fan of, reading spiritual literature, and I also absolutely related to the management that we are learning in our schools, because I'm also a B school student, and I can, understand the relationship between spirituality and management, because I believe like 80% of it is mindset, all of the work that you do, and 20% is maybe the skills and the hardcore capabilities. So interesting that you are like delving deeper in the form of stories and trying to convey a message through the book. So another question that I had was, through this book, what is it? How is it that you can awaken someone's spiritual essence? Because most people are living in a gross platform, which is like eat, make merry, drink and then roam around, and they don't necessarily delve deep into what is within them, because there is a lot of potential and the spiritual so-called consciousness within, which is not realized by a lot of people. So how do you think that through your book you can contribute to that endeavor?
See, one thing we'll have to appreciate is that throughout life's journey, at various instances of the age, we get into learnings, throughout our surroundings, and I feel that it is more important to address many of these issues through the grassroots. I mean to say that the education systems of primary education systems onwards, and the,
Mhm.
when it becomes a storytelling, I feel that it's symbiotic between children and their parents, and very importantly, to say that if a child has to learn, it observes, it learns from the surroundings, it observes from its parents, it observes from its families and friends around, and that's how the learning comes in into effect. It's just not restrictive to a certain age category, to say that only as adults we get into many other forms of pains and pleasures of life. But
Yeah,
the pains and pleasures of life are there throughout various
right.
instances. The challenges of toddler to challenges of high schooler to challenges of an adult. It's
Yeah.
there. You face different challenges at different ages. So that's where I feel that age should not be a barrier in terms of
Mhm.
storytelling. There could be instances where you convey through your voice stories. There are instances where you read and you convey it, but apparently these are modes of communication.
Right.
In such kind of communications, it addresses, because as a parent I read, I convey these as stories. As a child I listen to these stories. So the assimilation is of across various genres. I feel that the more and more we use various platforms to communicate, keep the communication on, so that there are right people who will absorb the right things at the right time. And
Wonderful.
it's important that you continue to keep the communication on, irrespective of what happens with different people at different ages and different challenges that they face. So
Right.
that is how we'll dealt with.
Wonderful. It's a good point that you made. Like, people will pick up the right things at the right time in the right place, and it's like they are in different stages of their journey, and depending upon where they are, they kind of absorb the essence of it, and then they realize it in their own life. So I thought that's an amazing point that you make here. And moving on to your second book, I think you have talked about it a little bit, that you have it in the form of poems, and which is called My Inspirations. I see the background cover as well in your wallpaper. So, can you also talk a little bit on that? What exactly it conveys?
Again, that is an experiment. So I
Okay.
have brought out certain poetic phrases for some of my
Okay.
inspirations. It's a combination of 21 short poems, while Dashavatar is a short stories, and this is short poems, which actually
Okay.
talks of the inspirations that I have around, and I have just blended my poetic phrases on those, and I've got them published out. So
Okay.
while it is much closer to me, apparently may not be relevant as much as so what Dasha short stories could be.
Mhm.
But if somebody has to know me, know my inspirations, so this is where it is there in black and white for anybody to look around with.
Okay.
um, it is purely personal.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. I think the personal stories and your experiences is what relates to the audience really fast. Because when I talk to people, it's always their personal story that interests people the most. So I think this is one book that people will truly enjoy as well.
And that's where I always keep saying, only until unless you don't bring out your personality out,
Yeah.
your personal things only define your personalities, and
Right.
personality is only what get characterized in your output. Maybe at your workplace, it may be at your relationships and managing your families and friends, or even it
Mm.
could be in any of your extracurricular experiments that you are going to do. So it's actually your inner personal elements that actually
Yeah.
create personalities, and that's where it's very important to awaken the divine within. And
Right.
it resonates very strongly in each one of us, if we look at ourselves and then create our own personality types.
Right. Right. Amazing. Dr. Shreyas, any advice to budding authors that you want to give through this channel?
I always say that never shy away from not doing any experiments,
Yeah.
because experiments are those which will only either tell you what are good for you and what are bad for you, and there is always a learning, and it's a
Right.
continuous journey. As I said in the beginning, I have been writing from few sentences to
Yeah.
pages now to a book. It has not been a well molded journey to say I am a trained author and I have got the mentored advice, and then I have come out with a book. No, it has not been so. I
Okay.
have drawn inspiration from a conversation with my wife, and that's what
Yeah.
led me into experimenting something, right? I have
Right.
also learned some of the good things from this journey, and there are a lot of
Yeah.
improvements when I speak about, when people come back and tell me that they have read the stories, and there are certain improvements that can be worked around with. I think they're all very positive influences on an individual's journey. So
Yeah.
as long as you're receptive to the feedback, I think the journey will always be exemplary, and there shouldn't be any regrets for not having experimented with life. So that's
Yeah.
what I always believe in. I aspire to inspire. So that's been the motto personally that I have been challenging myself with. As long as am I able to inspire somebody, that's been my aspiration of life. So
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Shreyas. It's been absolute delight talking to you. A lot of information that I think the viewers will definitely enjoy. Any closing comments that you want to make to our viewers?
I always believe that never shy from anything, and
Yeah.
I congratulate you and your channel
Yeah.
also for taking some of these inspirations in conversations, and
Yeah.
that's where best practices always need to be shared, and cross
Right.
pollination will always happen. So through this channel, if I'm able to reach to few people around, and if even one of them get inspired by whatever we all do together as a community, I think that's the purpose that we're all driving for.
Right.
And nevertheless, of course individual awakening has to lead to nation's growth.
Yeah.
Otherwise there's no purpose for what we all strive to do.
Yeah.
Always nation first is more important.
Yeah.
That should be the inspiration for all of us to say that we are all proud Indians. Jai Hind.
Absolutely. Jai Hind. And Dr. Shreyas, I think you made a really inspiring point at the end that nation comes first, and that's what we are striving for, right? So that's something that everyone who is viewing this video should inculcate for sure, because we are all contributing to a bigger cause, which is like the nation's growth, and which is obviously coming through societies and personal growth. So I think you made a really wonderful point for all our viewers to absorb.
Thank you, Raghunath. I enjoyed this conversation, and hope to see many more such personalities adorn your conversational lists, and look forward for many more inspiring talks. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Shreyas.
Thank you.
Bye.